Hi, y'all. So yeah, here's my talk. Basically, touchscreens make me a bit sad. I'm not a big fan of tapping on glass all the time for all the things I want to do. Some relief I get by typing at my laptop, but that's flat in its own way. Maybe I buy a peripheral keyboard that's a lot more clicky. That's nice, but there has to be a better way. And perhaps we could look back at previous technologies to get some inspiration. So what about Braille? There's not much to Braille, really. It's pretty simple. It's 2 columns, 3 rows each, left and a right. Each of those dots are numbered as such. If you press a dot such that it's raised, that is like setting the dot. So think of binary in 3D in some sense. So yeah, this is basically all you need to know to feel Braille. Yes, there are things like encoding schemes, different languages have different mappings, but this is all you need to know to feel it. But this is sort of only half the equation. I'm only talking about receiving. I'm only talking about reading, some writing. The other half is sending. So how do you create these symbols? How do you build them? So going back to the beginning, Louis Braille was blinded at a young age. He was playing with his father's stitching awls. His father was a woodworker, and unfortunately led to an accident where he blinded himself. But the interesting twist, when he got older, the thing that ultimately was his innovation was using something like a stitch and awl to create these bumps in paper. Basically, you do this kind of Missy Elliott move of you flip the paper, reverse it, go backwards, and when you read on the other side, you'll have this piece of raised writing. Ultimately, this became a tool called slate and stylus. This slate is this guided structure, so you could write neatly and you could feel where you are on the paper. By the 19th century, this is improved on in important ways, particularly, luckily going at the end of the conference, a lot of other talks covered some of the material, so just look at all the stuff about keyboards and typewriters. This is a Perkins Brailler. It takes inspiration from typewriters, but also stenography in the sense that if you see at the bottom, it's not a full QWERTY keyboard, but rather 3 keys on the left, 3 keys on the right, middle is like for the space bar in some sense. Think of it just your home row on your computer. And this is the mapping. Basically, your left index finger, your left hand is the left column, your right hand is the right column, and your index fingers are the first row, middle fingers, middle row, ring fingers, last row. So this is an interesting innovation. Now it takes the remapping rather than being direct manipulation of in spatially placing the dots yourself. Now you're going to the trouble, or you have the benefit of muscle memory, and so you could reliably always hit the one cell, or combinations thereof, right? Oops. The innovation here, why I brought up stenographs, is the idea is you chord combinations. So to hit a full Braille cell that where you want to raise, let's say 1, 4, 2, you can now just chord those on your left and right hand. So that's the innovation of Perkins Brailler. And then aside, there's some mnemonics that I'm going to borrow from 4-year-old Santi. Basically, he knew one thing, and he just loved Power Rangers. And this is helpful because I know at least 6 colors, and I could count up to 6. So taking that diagram I had earlier, I could just color the fingers to each end, and I kind of end up remaking hand turkeys in some sense, and that's kind of appropriate for this location. Anyway, so to continue on this story, I want to move over to 2 people, Satoshi and Reiko Fukushima. Satoshi is similar to Braille, but he lives in Japan, and due to Usher syndrome, went blind at age 8. Some differences, there are some important differences. I mentioned earlier that Braille can encode different languages. This is International Braille, mainly taken from the original French Braille. You basically have the same alphabet order, but W's at the end because of weird reasons. Japanese is different. It's not, it's not an alphabet. Rather, there's multiple writing systems. Kanji, or these Chinese characters, that luckily aren't involved in here. They're mainly focusing on kana, or hiragana and katakana, which are phonetic aspects of the language. Basically, what I'm showing here is a hiragana syllabary, where the idea is it's not individual letters, consonants and vowels, but rather each consonant and vowel pair has its own sound and own symbol. So this ends up, you have a larger kind of inventory of characters you have to remember, but they cover the entire space. Whereas like in English, you have multiple sounds mapping to the same like character combinations. The innovation with Japanese Braille is that it's actually conveying this phonetic information in the Braille cells themselves. The top cells, 1, 2, and 4, cover vowels, and the bottom cells, 3, 5, 6, cover consonants. And so each cell tells you the full phoneme, or the phonetic kana that you actually care about. And so this is an example from, you don't need to read the whole thing, but this is from a linguistic Olympiad, where basically it's presented as a puzzle of here's these Braille characters from this inventory of Japanese words you may know, can you figure out what the mapping is? So it's nice that it's discoverable in a real way. Some changes happen. By the time Satoshi is 18, he goes deaf too, so he's deafblind. The innovation comes from, there's a co-innovation between his mother, where she figures out that using the hand gestures of typing on a Perkins Brailler, by typing on his hands, she could convey the message, even though just through touch alone, no sound, no vision, just touch. And this is an example of Reiko and Satoshi recreating the original moment. Ultimately, this is mirrored. She's sort of doing it backwards in the same way, the Missy Elliott style. But here, the modern kind of way that was eventually done is an interpreter will be on the same side as the receiver, and they will type the same way as the person receives the information. And so all this goes to this big word that's part of my title, skeuomorphisms. Usually it's used in the context of aesthetics of the Apple Notes app looks like a note page. The calendar looks like a calendar with leather. But what I want to talk about here is by leveraging existing input methods and the receiving outputs, by playing around with this kind of equation I showed earlier, sending, and you do some, indirection and then you get receiving. If we play around with this equation, we could get some interesting innovations. So it starts off with the slate and stylus. You start off with the slate as ascending, you do the Missy Elliott flip and reverse it, and you get Braille structure. You fix the outputs here, but you change the inputs with Perkins Brailler. So now you're doing the hand mappings. But you get the same structure. This is a very common one that you point to some narrow way, some common format, some standard. But what really cool with Japanese finger Braille is we change the output to the same input. Now sending is receiving. And this is a really cool insight that Satoshi and Reiko Fukushima developed. So jumping back, I started off with my kind of concern about touchscreens in the modern world. There's a lot of, the space of accessible technologies is like really vast, much bigger than I could cover. In BangBangCon 2016, Sina Baram covered screen readers. He's a blind developer, and it was a really cool talk. Please watch it. Voiceover stuff exists. Refreshable braille displays exist. Even on the iPhone, you could do this Perkins-Brailler mapping, and it's really cool. But my favorite thing is something called screen away mode. Basically, because you don't need the screen, you could face it away from you. You could just feel the stuff. And now, from your point of view, we started here. These are still the same Perkins-Brailler mappings. If we rotate it a bit, now the hand positions is the same as the Braille cell itself. It's the same shape. So we're doing this trick again of changing the inputs and getting the same outputs. I'm not adept enough at doing things live, so this is a recording of me doing it on my iPhone. Basically, I pull it out, and I could type with my, I'm slowly typing a message here. But ultimately, it's a really cool thing where I don't have to look if I were better at it, but I could still get the core of it is the feelings in my hands. That's where the tactility is, not in the glass, but rather the muscle memory from how I type, how I create these Braille, typing Braille. So that's what I'm gonna say. Anyway, thank you, BangBangCon.